And Sonlie, welcome again to another exciting and knowledgeable live stream discussion, Learning with Sonlie, the magic of improver, plus a bonus topic under bakery mathematics, product costing. With our guest speaker for this afternoon, an esteemed master baker, one of the pillars in the baking industry, and very honorable master baker, Sir Rolly Dorado.
Good afternoon and welcome to Sonlie Baking Center. Now for today, we're going to discuss bread improvers plus yung atin bakery math. Now before I proceed while studying, and we might consider it as the first bread improver, during the Industrial Revolution, the bakery owners decided to make use of machineries instead of the manual mixing. And then afterwards, gradually, the company grew up, and then so therefore, they decided now to put up their own shops to different parts of the US. Now, the problem is, they found out that not all of those places where they put up their plants did not give up good results when it comes to the bread. So therefore, those companies decided that they will give certain amount and went to Chicago, Illinois at Mellon Institute and talked with the principal or president of the university, and then told him about the problem of what they are trying to solve. So therefore, after agreeing to their agreement, they decided to give them all the necessary things that will be used for testing: flour, sugar, salt, shortening, milk powder, everything. Now in testing, you only test one item at a time. So for example, for today, they only tried to use the flours that were given to them, and they found out that there is nothing wrong with it. Then afterwards, they went to sugar, salt, shortening, etc. So with all those dry ingredients, they found out that there is nothing wrong with it. Now finally, they told the different plants to give them samples of the water being used in their area. So therefore now, when they receive all the samples, the first thing that they did is try to find out what kind of water is being used in this area. Is it soft, is it medium, or is it hard? Now afterwards, then when they found out the type of water now being used in a certain area, they now did their own test. And this is the problem that is causing their product. It is the water. They found out that if the water is soft, meaning the mineral content is very low, the dough is very sticky, you have to reduce your water absorption, plus you have to increase your water, and then afterwards increase a little bit your salt so that you will come up with a good product. On the other hand, if the water given to them is a little bit hard, the mixing time becomes longer. So therefore, the proofing time becomes longer also. So therefore, this now gives them problem because of the timing. So therefore now, after realizing these problems, they try now to develop a kind of product which will solve the mineral content of the water. And this is what they call the mineral yeast food. To honor the president of the Mellon Institute, whose name is Robert Duncan Kennedy, the brand name given was RKD. So this is the first bread improver that you might consider. And we have used it here in the Philippines before. So therefore, if your water level is only this much, you only have to use 0.5. If the water level is a little bit higher, you don't have to use any. But if your water content is really very low in mineral, then you have to use the maximum amount of the mineral yeast food. This was how they were able to solve the problem when it comes to the bakery production. But now, it is now quite different because of the climatic conditions that we are now experiencing. Now, you will notice that in some areas, I think now in California, they have forest fires. Here in our country, when it rains, my God, it will really flood because the rainfall is really that much. So therefore, it affects the wheat kernel. That is why we now are forced to use a bread improver. Before, the bread improver introduced was, you might say, generic. You could use it anywhere you want. But now it seems that companies are getting specific items to meet their demands. For example, for our sandwich bread, they want a good lift. By the way, as I have made mention before, bromate was removed from the flour and from the bread improver. This one gives you the good oven kick. So it was now replaced by other products, like for example, your vitamin C. But then, to be honest with you, I have worked with it. It is a different story if you have bromate. If you have the cover and you have sufficient amount of bromate, it will remove the cover of your loaf pan. But now you cannot do that. So therefore, they find ways and means to have another one or substitute for bromate. That is why we have this. Now there is what they call the building blocks. They have what they call products that will is released, and so that when you cut it, it will not return. So it is not very specific. Others would like the product only to become soft. So therefore, we now have different choices. Now, what are the advantages of using bread improver? First of all, you maintain the height of your bread. Second, you maintain the softness of your bread. Third also, the dough becomes smoother if you use bread improvers in your product. So it also helps prolong the shelf life of your product. So these are the things that you will get out of using our bread improver. So this is, if you could read it, you have this one, what is a bread improver. As of now, it is a mixture of different ingredients, but basically ho, dun sa nakalagay ho dun sa lusap ng product, siya ho ay generic. So you could only find there vitamin C, you could find their enzymes, but they will not specify to you what kind of it because, you know, sa competition, you cannot put it there. So it is only on their own. Likewise also with our competitor, it is also the same. They do not put up all the ingredients required. So if you have machines or even if you have manual mixing, it is improved the machinability. It does not break or it does not crack easily. Proof tolerance. Even if your dough is a little bit overproof, slightly overproof, it will not collapse immediately. So you have a smoother dough, you have better yield. In what sense? Because you could add more water if you would use an improver, or the other way around. If without improver you're using 50 grams and the yield, the volume is only this small, if you would use now a bread improver, the volume will become bigger. So therefore, the reason why it is given better yield is that instead of measuring 50, you could measure 45. When you bake it, still it would be a little bit bigger than your 50 grams. So therefore, that 5 grams difference, if you would add it, will give you more yield, but it still gives you better result. Provides also consumers with the best type of bread, like larger volume, which I have told you. Now, improved texture, it will become smoother. You have better preservation because it tries to hold up the water, plus the taste and aroma, it helps ang ating home bread improver. Now, we have the following bread improvers. We have this one, the Magimix. Okay? So, makikita nyo dito, meron ho siya kulay. So, this is Magimix Green. The purpose of this one is to give oven kick in your bread. So, if you're making sandwich bread, this would help you a lot. So, you will have that nice corner, not really sharp, rounded corner, but it would be stable. On the other hand, for those smaller items which would stale or dry up faster, then we have this Magimix Yellow. So this one is you have here the color. This is your muddy mix yellow. So they have the enzymes, they have the emulsifiers, we will explain ho later, para ho makita ho ninyo kung paano ho siya gumagana. For those of you na your production is for the lower income type of group, so we also have a special improver for you, which we call our Magimix Red. Okay? So ito ho yung ginagamit ho natin ho para ho dun sa mga tinapay ho na yung when you try to sell it because of your community that they cannot afford the higher one. So this one could help you improve also your product. So this is our Magimix Red. And then the last one, for those of you making pizza or anything like donut that when you cut it, it will shrink. So we will have here our baker's bonus. Okay, ha? Now, Lusaf made ho, tinatawag ho nila ho na caricature so that we could explain ho kung paano ho ang function ng bawat ho ingredients. So you have ho yung ating composition of bread improvers. So, dito, okay, this one. So you have ho yung ating hong building blocks. Now, parang hong sinabi sa building blocks, this is when you put tiles, ganun ho, no? So ito yung mga building blocks. So it helps ho in inyong glutina to become stronger so that it will not just collapse. And then you have ho yung emulsifier, which I will show you later. This one would hold the water and the oil. It is only on the surface. It will not bind the whole of it, no? The whole of it, no? It will just be on the surface so that you will have your oil here, you have your water here, but it is now in smaller units, so you will form an emulsion. So therefore, if you have an emulsifier in your improver, your product stays longer for a longer period of time. Now, enzymes. Last time, I think we have discussed about this alpha and beta amylase. As I have mentioned before, starch is composed of so many sugar. That is why it is called polysaccharide. So you have, the way it is represented to us is you have a zero, then you have a line, and then it is connected to one another until you form something like 18 strength. So this is your sugar. Now, for the alpha, this long chain will be cut into smaller units. This smaller units is now called dextrin. D-E-X-T-R-I-N, dextrin. So it becomes smaller. So now is the time for the beta amylase to react on it so that it will now be cut into 2 units, which we now call maltose. Now, why do they do this? Because if it turns out into a maltose, the yeast contains an enzyme called zymase. This one will now be splitted into 2. This one now turns the trick because it is now converted, your starch will now be converted into sugar, and then afterwards eaten by the enzymes or eaten by the yeast, it will now form into alcohol aldehydes. So that plus carbon dioxide. So ito ang kanyang pinaka-function. Now, as I remember I think somebody called me up that why is it that his bread is gummy. So I know that he was adding some kind of enzymes in his formulation. So I told him that why don't you ask first the plant how much of these enzymes were placed into their flour, and then afterwards ask them what is the range of this enzyme if you place it in your product. So for example, it is only good for 20 ppm, and then afterwards the flour company already put their 5, so you have still 15 ppm for you to play with. So therefore, when I told him about this, I think he asked yung flour miller, and from then on he did not call me up because he was able to solve his solution. His bread did not become gummy anymore. So therefore, don't be that like a scientist that you just keep on adding. No, there are so many tricks when it comes to using enzymes. Okay. How the individual function of our different ingredients placed into an improver. So Hindi ho kapareho nung araw na po pwede ho parang lahat. Ngayon ho, medyo ho parang specialization ho ang lalabas ho sa atin hong mga bread improvers. Okay? Mixing. For our emulsifier, for those of you who know a little bit of chemistry, you will have here po yung atin hong natawag ho na glycerin. Then if you would split it, you have your monoglyceride, and then you have your disaccharide ho. So, ito ho yung kalalabas ng atin hong tinatawag na emulsifier. By the way, there are two sources ho ng atin hong emulsifier. One comes from the egg, which is found in the egg yolk, and the other one comes from the soya. So if you have a bread improver, the color is a little bit yellow, then the lecithin or the emulsifier used came from the egg. But if it is white, the emulsifier used comes from your starch. Now, this is the test conducted in Lusaf. The left side is your baguette, or what we call here French bread. By the way, baguette is different from French bread, huh? Because when you say baguette, the weight is only something like 300 grams. But if you say French bread, or what they call pas français, it would be bigger than that. It would be around 400, and they have 7 cuts. So without the improver, you will notice that the volume is small, but with an improver, you will notice that the volume becomes bigger. This is where I am telling you that you can reduce the weight of the dough, so therefore the benefit is that you will have more yield. On the other hand, if you are not making, for example, any of this European bread, and you're making this open top, what you call Panamericano, or in other places it is called pan de Cuba, or what they call white bread, you will notice that without the bread improver, the volume is smaller, and with the use of the bread improver, the volume becomes higher. Not only that, please try to see the texture ho ng inyong pinaka-crust. You will notice that without the improver, the color of the crust is a little bit dark in color, while the one on the right, the color of the crumb is a little bit whiter. You know why? The instructor explained it to us. If the molecules of your crumb is round like this, the tendency, if you try to, for example, this is your bread, okay? This is your sliced bread. This is the source of light. You try to have an angle, so therefore the light strikes here, and then afterwards it deflects into your eyes. So this is how we try to see the color of your crumb. If the texture would be round, as explained to us, round cells will absorb the light. It will not deflect, so therefore the color becomes darker. On the other hand, if the molecule or your texture is a little bit oblongated, so therefore what happens is that the light deflects into your eye. That is why the color of your crumb becomes whiter. Also, the thing that they told us is this: if the crumb texture has rounded holes, the shelf life becomes shorter and it becomes firmer immediately. On the other hand, if it is oblongated, the shelf life becomes longer and it stays softer for a longer period of time. So depending on what you like for your product, you just want the volume, then you just use Magimix. It will be a little bit soft, but if you really want it to be softer, then you have to use our Magimix Yellow. So, softness, this is the effect, okay? The other one is in volume, the other one is on what you call softness. They have the same weight. Ito ho yung weight ho natin. It is either 500 grams, 300 grams that you place on one end of the balance scale. You put, for example, 400 here, and then you put your ingredients on the other side. So they have the same weight. You will notice that the one without improver, the height is very high. Remember, they have the same cuts. So If you have 40 slices, you will also have 40 slices on the other side. But the one with the improver, like the one with the Magimix yellow, you will notice that the dead weight, which is the weight of 400 or 300 grams, sink down. That means it is softer if you use a bread improver. So therefore, this one would be very good for your production because your bread will stay longer soft for a long period of time. Now, watch out also when you try now to place your products. It should be a little bit, it should be dry and it should not go higher than 25 degrees Celsius. So please do not put anything near the oven because it is very warm. So just like what I have told you before, just tie it and then afterwards you put your tape and then place it in a container and far away from any heat, any direct heat like from the sun or from the oven. Now, mold inhibitor. We have here a list of mold inhibitor, but for bread production, the only one used here in the Philippines is calcium propionate. The shortcut that they call it is CalPro. So we have there the rest, but some of them are used as food. Now, there are two types of calcium propionate being sold in the market. One is granulated, the other one is in powdered form. I think I have made mention before that I have a friend who sent me a sample of his bread, and then he was wondering what are those black spots. And since it is still allowed for us to mail bread at Lusaf, so I gave them a few pieces of sliced bread and then told them what is this black spots that is being the problem of our friend who owns a bakery. So therefore they analyze it. Since they are complete, they have all those magnifying glass, telescope or what they have used. So when they found that, they send us the result that it is CalPro. So I told him, what kind of calcium propionate are you using? He told me the one that is granulated. Now basically what we learned, since calcium propionate is in powdered form, and then if you have some kind of wind or gust of wind, and if you smell it, boy, it doesn't really smell so good. So therefore, to solve this problem, other companies coated it with shortening with a high melting point. But the problem is during mixing, this one does not melt because of the high temperature of the fat. So during baking, it stays there as is. So it does not do the function of inhibiting the molds in your bread. That is why if you would ask my opinion, when you buy calcium propionate, it should be in powdered form like this. Okay? It is in powdered form. So it is easier. All you have to do is, if you are allergic to it, is use now your mask. Anyway, all of us are now wearing masks, so you could wear that. The use is from 0.4. Some companies use it in the amount of 0.5. By the way, I went into a bakery. They're already using calcium propionate, but still their bread is getting spoiled. They have also molds. So when I went there and inspected it, the problem is this. They're getting back the products which were already moldy from the different outlets that they have, and this is the production area, and they place all those old breads just a little bit outside. And one guy I saw is trying to cut the plastic bag, remove the content, put the plastic bag in another container, because the breads, the stale bread, will be sold sa mga ng fish pan or yun mga hayop, and plastic is for the waste, basura. And then I also noticed that they are using electric fan to cool down their bread. Now, since the guy, when he opened up yung pinaka plastic bag, it is very small. So you have to use a microscope to see it. So therefore, this one, when he opens it, boom, it bursts into the air. And then afterwards, your electric fan sucks it and then push it towards the newly baked product. So what I told to the owner is, please do not put all your stale breads here. Get another area far from the bakery. If you have a vacant lot there, you do it there, you remove it there, so therefore there will be no infestation. When they followed what I have recommended to them, there were no more problems when it comes to molds in their bread. So I would like to tell you that not because that you put their mold and your place is dirty, you will already be able to remove the molds in your area. That is totally impossible. You have to clean your shop. Plus also, they have to wear hand gloves when they are now trying to slice or package the bread product when they are putting it into their packaging material. Or else, if you are cooling your bread, if you put it on top of your table or you put it on top of your baking pans, remember, your bread is hot, your table is cold. So therefore, there will be condensation. You will have the water. So if you notice that the bread would become moldy at the bottom, that is the problem in your place. Now, on the other hand, if it is both ends that would have molds, then it is how it is being handled by the one slicing the bread. They use bare hands.
Okay, Sir Rolly, so let's greet yung mga active viewers natin. So we have Meg Bitoy, Pauline Pido, and Anoj Santos Iscar. We also have Manuela Garcia, and si ba to? From Canada, meron din tayong watchers na from Canada, yung mga viewers natin. Susana Karaig. Yan. Say hi, Sir Rolly daw. Sabi ni, sino ba to? Emma Ruado Magbayaw. We also have, yan. Then, good afternoon to all. Norby Gabriel de Guzman. Also, with us, watching yung mga, account executives. Batiin mo, Sir Rolly, sila.
Hello, good afternoon everyone, and thank you for watching.
And also, hello po, Daddy, Mitz Almodovar.
Hello, Mitz.
And of course, we have from Singapore, Jimmy Kea Yuan-cho.
Okay. Good afternoon.
And also from Antipolo, we have Norby Gabriel de Guzman. Yan. Hello po, Chef Jezzy Ka Jaya Sardea Aknya. Medyo mahaba yung kanyang pangalan. Also, we have Christine Castor. Yan. Good afternoon daw, mga ka-Sonlie. Yes. For our question, sir, what is the main function of bread improvers in the bread making?
Okay. One, as you have seen in the photo, it would give you better volume. Not only that, your dough becomes smoother, you have a whiter texture. So if you use a bread improver, you will have more yield. So therefore, that means extra profit on your side. Plus, you will now have less returns because people now will now like your bread because even if it is on the second day, it is still soft. So these are the things that would give you the benefits when using bread improvers.
Yes, that's correct. And additional, di ba, Sir Rolly, during the mixing, malaking tulong din ang bread improver. No?
If you have a bread improver, you will notice that your dough becomes smoother in a shorter period of time. It becomes elastic, and also it gives. Also, when it comes to the oven, sometimes you try to miss one product that you could not already bake it. If it is not really that oven-proof, just a little bit, no? If you put it in the oven, still you could manage to get a product.
Yes, that's
if
correct.
You have a bread improver.
Yes. Another question, what is the difference of Magimix bread improvers to other improvers available in the market, which is cheaper than your brands?
Basically, a bread improver, as I have done it before, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you put this thing here, you put this thing here, you close it, it is done. At Lusaf, they are hiring highly trained technicians, not only technicians, but also those who are biologists, chemists, etc. So therefore, the trials and error of combining, for example, vitamin C, how much of this alpha amylase, how much of this beta amylase that we will put, it will take time. Sometimes it will take us a month before we could finish a product which is suitable. Not only that, it is also tried how much or how long is the shelf life of the product, how much bigger is it compared to our competitor. So therefore, that is the reason why the product becomes a little bit expensive than the rest, because of the experiments, testing and everything, so that when you receive it, at least you get a very good product.
Yes, a very quality product.
Yeah.
Meaning our Magimix bread improvers are quality. May kasabihan nga tayo, di ba Sir Rolly, na you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Like in soft instant teas natin, di ba Sir Rolly, it's a kinda medyo mahal sa market natin, but it gives quality products, right? Like yung makakuha mo din consistency, hindi ka mangangamba na ngayon okay siya, the following day hindi siya okay. So all throughout the weather, all throughout the months, consistent ang quality ng product natin. Right, Sir Rolly?
Yeah. Not only that, I bake a little bits at home, and then luckily I was able to buy another brand. When I tried it, it doesn't satisfy me. It doesn't give me the oven kick that I like. That is why when I came here, I bought the Magimix Green, and then from then on, I get the result that I really wanted, which is the oven kick that I want, plus the softness that I really want also. So I pay the price, but I get it. And the people who bought my bread told me that it is good and it is soft, even the following day. Even if they place it inside the refrigerator, which should not be done, but still the following day when they eat it, it is still soft.
Yes, another question from our viewers. Emulsifiers din ang egg po, di ba? Tama po ba? From Shobeco.
It has there an emulsifier called lecithin. It is also found in your egg yolk.
Yes. Then, another question, can bread improver address the early moldings?
No. The molding will depend on the weather and how you handle your product.
Yes.
So the bread improver would only give you better volume, better texture, better smell. But when it comes to molding, it would not. It is how clean your place is. So number one is really sanitation.
Yes.
In fact, in those big bakeries, the number one thing that you consider is they always clean their place.
And also
Machineries, tables, everything they clean it.
Yes, that's correct. And Sir Rolly, no, makakatulong din dyan ang calcium propionate ng Sonlie, right?
Yes, with Calpro, this is the one that would be able to control ang inyong mold formation. By the way, if I should have missed it, if for today you are not using Calpro in your product and you put their Calpro now, for example, if you're using other yeast, you will notice that your proof time or your fermentation time will become longer. If before, after 2 hours, you're already baking it, but the moment you put now Calpro so that your bread will not have any molds, then your 2 hours will be exceeded. It might be 2.5 or 3 hours, and if your yeast is not really that good, it might take you a longer time. That is why, with this invention, I would suggest that you buy our soft instant yeast, because this one was made so that it will be tolerant sa atin hong mga calcium propionate. At least the yeast will also be affected, but instead of the 2 hours, it might be only 2.5 compared to the other yeast, which will be a little bit much more longer.
That's correct. Again, Sir Rolly, no, i-reiterate natin yung RS or yung Baker's Bonus natin. Yung function daw po niya, ano daw po yung main function ng Baker's Bonus natin?
Baker's Bonus is like this. Could you please go back to the where you have that glutathione?
So mainly, we're using it for the pizza?
Yeah, for the pizza.
Okay.
May merong circle.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Magimix, ito hong atin this is how our instructor explained to us. Yun naman hong Lusaf, naglagay ho siya ng scissor, no, to snip. So, Yun hong atin hong bilog dito ha. This is how our instructor showed us how a dead yeast look. So it is your outer skin ng atin hong pinaka yeast cell, and then it is open, then they put their two lines. This is where the glutathione comes out. That is why, for those of you who have an error of trying to dissolve the yeast in cold water, glutathione will activate immediately. You will have a very fluid dough, very sticky. That is why you have to be very careful with that, most especially if you're using dry yeast. If you did not dissolve it in lukewarm water of 38, the glutathione will come out. But if you would use the right temperature of 38, that opening will close according to their studies. So this one will now try to cut a little bit ang inyong mga pinaka-protina. So therefore, when you try to sit this one, the dough will not return. This is the problem when you're making donut. If you cut your donut, instead of looking round, it becomes oblong. For your pizza, if you try to sit it out, it keeps on coming back because it becomes bucket. So if you are going to use yung atin home baker's bonus, this one will solve your problem. So anything that needs sheeting, like cinnamon rolls, that it keeps on coming back because it's becoming bucky, then you try to use ang atin home baker's bonus. By the way, the range will depend on the strength of your flour. The stronger the flour, the higher the amount that you use. The lesser is the strength, the lesser is the amount.
Kasi may mga flour yan, no, na available sa market na very strong.
Yeah.
Pag sinit natin, bumabalik siya. So with the RS or the baker's bonus, it can help to relax the dough na spread nila.
Also, this one helps you in your production because it would lessen your production time.
Yes.
Instead of you waiting, you keep on rolling it or sheeting it, and then afterwards it keeps on returning. So with the use of the baker's bonus, the moment you sheet it out, and if you cut it, then it will not change its shape, especially for pizza.
Yes, that's correct. And also yung mga yung mga gumagawa ng mga otap, di ba
Yes,
po?
yes.
Very helpful yan.
Anything that is sheeted, you use this one.
Yeah, so very recommended yung ating baker's bonus sa mga gumagawa dyan ng
Otap, hopia, ano pa yung pinapasa natin dito, yung egg
cracklets.
Egg cracklets.
Yes, po.
You could use it one.
Yung lahat ng mga pasalubong products na pwede natin gamitin yan.
Na dinadaan sa pasada ho na nag-shrink.
So yan ang sagot sa inyo. Sa mga nahihirapan mag-ship dyan, baker's bonus po tayo. Another follow-up question from Shobeko. Emulsifiers din ang, sorry. Tapos na po yan. Enzymes din po ba ang ammonia bicarbonate?
No.
Okay, so definitely it's not.
No,
it's different ang enzymes and ammonia bicarbonate.
Yes.
Another question, can calcium propionate can be used for cakes?
No. For cakes, it is a different one. It is potassium sorbate. But the way it was taught to us when studying, potassium sorbates, like what you're doing here in our country, you try to blend it with your cake batter. But in US, it is different. Their line of reasoning is this. Sugar by itself is preservative. So if you have sugar, it will preserve your product. So what they do is that since it is aligned, you have there the tunnel oven, the potassium sorbate is blended with water, and then afterwards, as the product goes, this one is sprayed on top because it is the outer part that is affected by mold, the way you handle it. So since it is still hot, the water will evaporate. So what will be retained in your product finally is just the potassium sorbate.
That's
so this one minimizes yung tinatawag nating mold formation.
Yes, that's right. So another question from Shirley Soria Tulyu. Nag-expire din po ba ang bread improvers?
Yes, of course. By the way, when they make bread improvers, it is only parts per million. For example, they only use 10 ppm of vitamin C. Now, just to explain to you what is meant by 10 ppm. For example, you measure 10 grams, and then below that, you have to divide it by 1 million. So that is 10 parts per million. So if it is 50, you have 50 on top, and below is 1 million. That is 1 plus 3 ciphers, comma, plus 3 ciphers, you have that 1 million. That is the meaning of parts per million. So you could just imagine it is just a very small quantity. How will you now be able to scale it in your area? Do you need now an analytic balance? So therefore, to facilitate ho ang inyong scale ng inyong improver, they added flour. And flour is considered a filler. Some others, they use starch. But since flour contains moisture in the amount of 15%, then there will be reaction ho sa inyong pinaka-improver because of the presence of moisture. So what the company does now is dehydrate the starch, dehydrate the flour until the moisture content is within the vicinity of 4 to 5% only. Then they use it now as filler for their improver.
So from Cheese Legazpi, or Cheats Legazpi, how to make ensaymada always soft, like Mary Grace? What improvers they use? For Mary Grace, we don't know what's whether you're using, di ba, right?
Yeah.
Pero we recommend the...
Yeah, you use our Magimix yellow.
For the soft breads.
You know, softness of ensaymada would be as follows. Use high amount of sugar, use high amount of fat, egg yolk also, but not too much. Others would say that, oh, I only use pure egg yolk in my ensaymada. But the thing is, they did not add water into their recipe. The moment that you use more yolks in your recipe, you will notice that at first it is very soft. But if you give it about 20 or 30 minutes rest period, if you touch the dough, it will become very firm because of the reaction of the emulsifier. So therefore, for those people, oh, I only use egg yolk, and then they will notice that after baking, their ensaymada is still hard because it lacks moisture. The moment you add their emulsifier, you have to add more water into your product. So this is one of the reasons why the product would be softer, plus an emulsifier.
Okay. So before we go on with our other questions, batiin naman natin yung mga viewers natin na very active. Maricel Ferran Julio, Solis Garcia, good afternoon po, Chef, sabi niya.
Ganun.
Ano po ang bread improver pang pandesal? Sabi naman ni Shell Chanko.
For pandesal, if you just want it really for, one day, then we could recommend Magimix. The proportion to be used is 4 grams per kilo of flour. 4 grams. Also, the following day, your pandesal would still be soft, provided that you have sufficient amount of water, and your pandesal is not rebake. This is the one that makes your pandesal hard. So somebody would come, you bake the whole plancha, and then afterwards some of it would still be retained. And then another guy will be coming in later, and then you put it again back into the oven so that it will become warm. Boy, the one that will buy the last one is already buying rock.
Tama po yan. Another viewers from Tacloban, Vianney Beron Herrera. Say hi daw po.
Hello.
Ayan. And we have another question. How long does the calcium propionate prevents the bread from mold growth?
We have tested it here because our place is always cool. It went beyond 10 days. But if I were you, I will not eat the bread after 10 days. But it lasted 10 days with a clean place, yes, the right amount, the right system. The product lasted for 10 days before it starts to get moldy.
Yeah, so na-mention na rin ni Sir Rolly about the environment. Kasi another question nagtanong dito, aside from using calcium propionate, is there any recommendation to consider to prevent mold growth in baked products?
The number one problem here in the Philippines is that they use electric fan in cooling the bread. That one is really very, very wrong. What you could do is you try to get an area which is very clean, then you try to buy an exhaust fan, because you will notice, you boil the water, you will notice steam. Where does the steam go? Is it going down or is it going up? That's a good example. Now the bread also, if you try to bake it, if you could not notice it, the heat goes up. So what you need is an extraction. Now if you blow your baked product, newly baked product, with an electric fan, you do not know what is the content of the air being blown. Does it contain microbes? Does it contain this one? And then you're blowing it into the newly baked product. The problem also is that the outer part becomes cold. You notice, oh, when you touch it, it's already cold. So you now place it inside your packaging material. After some time, you will notice that your packaging material starts to perspire because the heat from the center is now going out. Since it cannot go out, it clings into your packaging material. So what happens? There is a difference of temperature, condensation is starts. So now, this is where the problem lies. You will now have your molds.
Okay, so good afternoon from Isabella, Joanna, Sofia, Fausto Gimaray. Yan.
Hello.
Then from Cheats again, is it okay to combine Magimix Green and Magimix Yellow?
Yes, you can. In the amount of 50-50. For example, instead of 4 grams, you use 2 grams of the Magimix Yellow and 2 grams of the Magimix Green. That's a good question.
Yes. And Shobeko, again, how come magiging longer po yung shelf life ng bread pag longer yung purse ng bread compare sa bilog?
Which one?
Hindi ko siya maintindihan actually. So, longer po yung shelf life ng bread pag longer ang purse. So, I don't know what purse means, Shobe. So, can you clear your questions po? Ano?
What is first?
Anyway, from Glessy Marquez, good afternoon, Sir Rolly. Nag-school ako sa Sonlie 1995, ikaw ang instructor. Parang di tumatanda po si Sir. Nice to see you kahit sa FB lang.
Thank you.
Yan. Glessy po, Marquez siya.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we have to discuss the, next, our bonus topic.
Okay.
Yung ating bakery mathematics product costing.
Okay.
So let's give again our stream with Sir Rolly.
All right. Now we will discuss now those baker using cups and teaspoons. All right. We will show you why I don't recommend this. This one we have 2 samples of, and it is written 1/2 cup. All right. So titignan ho natin. The first thing that we will do, by the way, I will try just to show you. We have here a digital. I place this one first, and then afterwards state it so that it will become 0. Okay? And then also I will get the other one and then also take it. So, wait, no? This one, the weight is 44. Okay? The weight of this one now is 41. Okay? So, magkaiba. You will also notice that the height is also not the same. Now, this is what I am trying to emphasize every time I'm making a demonstration, that it is better for you to use a baker's percentage than use the volume. So, for example, the other guy uses this one when making his recipe, and you have this type of your cake, your measuring cup. So, what we will do is this. First, we fill it with flour. Wait. Put this one first to 0. Okay. Now, what I will do is this. Okay, just for you to see it. Okay? 2 ways. If both of you nagmamadali, what you will do is just scrape this one as fast as you can. Immediately like that. Then we scale it. Alright? The measurement is 62 grams. Alright? Now, this is the right way of trying to level off your ingredient or your flour material. So, this is your scraper. What you do is you move it up and down. Okay? What was the first weight? 61. So now, what is the weight? 63. You see the difference? Just in trying to level it up, it already makes a difference between the two. Now, we go to the other one. So 63. Now, this one, we also made it to 0. And then we now put the flour here. Now we'll just level it up in a good manner, back and forth slowly until it becomes level. Then afterwards, I will place it here. It is only 56. The other one is 61 and 62. This one is only 56. So therefore, you're complaining, why is it that I followed your recipe, it did not come out good? Because you're using a different type of cups. Also this one. We go to sugar. This is what they call 1/2, all right? And this is what they call 1/4. So we try it first with 1/2. I zero it again, put it into 0. This one is sugar that I am trying to scale. Then afterwards, I will level it up in the way. Okay. So therefore, the weight is now 97. So therefore, this is 1/2. If you go to 1/4, it means 1/4 is 1/2. What is 1/2 of 1/2? So that is your 1/4. So now, I will put this one first here, take it, 0. Then now, I will now put here the sugar. What is the weight before? 92? What was the weight before? 92? Okay. So if you would divide it, and the weight is 52. You see? If it is 92, if you divide it by 2, roughly it's about 46. But now, this one is 52. So therefore, if I double the amount of 52 and 52, it becomes 104. So therefore, these two does not jibe. Also, when it comes to salt, so we put ang atin supposing sa inyong company, ang ginagamit ito ay rock salt. So you have your rock salt here, then afterwards we press. So the weight of the salt is now 4 grams. Okay? Now, assuming now, in your place, instead of using the rock salt, this is our salt na, which is now in powdered form. Uso na ngayon ng powdered form para madali siyang matunaw. So the other one is 4. This one now is how much? Okay, it is also 4. Okay? Therefore now, just from our example, you will notice that there is already a big difference sa inyong ginagamit. That is why you will say that why is it that my bread collapsed? Why is it like this? It is just because that all of us, tatlo tayong gumagawa, will have different types of measuring cup. So now, this is what we will do. What you will do, you try to buy a good, what they call this digital scale. The minimum weight that should be measured is about 1 gram. And then you choose, do you want it 2 kilos maximum, 3 kilos maximum, or 5 kilos maximum. I don't care about how high you want it. But what is important is the lowest weight that you can measure, which is 1 gram. Alright? So, based sa amin pagkagawa, computation of percentage of formulation, meron kami rito, it is just an assumed value, no? Na 3 cups of flour measure 600 grams, and then afterwards, we try to make it into a percentage. By the way, whatever type of flour that you are using, whether it is soft flour, bread flour, all-purpose, or combination thereof, the percentage of your flour is always 100%. Ulitin mo ako naman. Mainit-init ng konti. Example also, 1/3 of cup measures this one. Please do not follow my weight. You do your own scaling. Baka sabihin nyo, hindi kasi nung kinopy namin sa inyo, ganun ito. No. This is just an example. What you do is you buy your ingredient, you get your measuring cup, you put it there on top, you tare it so that it will become zero. So that when you put now your ingredient, like what I have done before, the weight will come out. So this is what you will do. So, base ho, do sa akin hong ginawa, yun hong atin hong flour is 600 grams, yun hong 3/4 cups na sugar is 90, then you have 6, you have 9, you have 2.4, 30, and 330 grams. So now you have your weights. This is now easier for you to convert it into a baker's percentage. Now, ano kaganda ng baker's percentage? Whether I make only 500 grams, whether I only make 300 grams, whether I make half bag or one bag, the taste of the product will always be the same. Unlike this one, if you only make, for example, 3.5, and this one does not relate to each other, the result of your bread will not always be the same. It would be a little bit difficult. So, the best thing for you to do, it is very easy. Always use the weight of the flour as your divisor. And then multiply it by 100, because 100 is always our percentage. That gives you your baker's percentage. Okay? Let us go to the next one so that it will become clearer. For example, this one, this is your water. The amount of the water that you will be using is something like 330 grams. You divide 330 by 600, that gives you 0.55. Then multiply it by that gives you 55%. So this is your, okay, 330 divided by 600 gives you 0.55 times 100 gives you 55%. So you do the same thing all throughout. Sugar also divide by 600 times 100. Salt also divide by 600 times 100 gives you the percentage. Shortening, if you have it, divided by 600, multiply by 100, that gives you the corresponding percentage that you have in your recipe. This is any type of bread. I just gave you samples of the ingredients. Yours might be longer. You might have egg yolk. You might have a milk powder. You might use butter or whatever you want to use, but please scale everything. And then afterwards, get the baker's percentage. So now, if you want to do some computation, you have here what is 15% of 600, or what is the salt of 1.5 or 1%. So if you could get the answer, that means you get a little bit or understand what we have just told you. All right, so you have it there. 55 times 600, or 55, you divide it by 100, multiplied by 600, that gives you 330 grams. By the way, from percentage to decimals, always divide it by 100 or move the decimal point 2 places to the left. From, if it is a whole number, if it contains a decimal point, start from the decimal point and then move 2 places to the left. That is how you would be able to get the weights in grams. Now, if you know now your baker's percentage and you have an order, you just want to make, for example, you receive an order, I just want you to give me something like 120 pieces of the buns. So your question is, how much flour will I use? Oh, before I want to using this one, so probably if I make it 2.5, I will get this one. So what you're doing is what we call a la chams or a la chamba. So that is not good. So now this is how you should do it. How to get the flour factor. It is very easy. You don't have to go to college to study this, because what we learn only in the elementary is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And this is what we will just do. You add all the baker's percentage. Flour is 100, sugar is 15, so you add all of them. And the total baker percentage based on the recipe that we have presented came out to 177.9. That is the total baker's percentage. Now, how do you get the flour factor? The flour factor is derived by dividing 100 by 177.9. That gives you 0.562. This is your flour factor. Okay? Supposing may order ho kayo that needs 20 grams or 50 grams and you need something like 50 pieces. So you multiply 50 grams by 50 pieces, that gives you 2,500. So you replace that one and multiply it by 0.562 will give you your flour weight. Here in our computation, the total dough weight is 167.4. So if you multiply it by 0.562, the flour weight is equivalent to 600 grams. It is now very easy. The moment you get the weight of the flour, because it is always the basis, you can now get the weight of the sugar, the salt, the shortening, etc. up to the end. So now, you could go and then tell them, okay, I could have your product. So, exact ho ang inyong gagawin. Hindi ho yung, may sumubra, kakanin ko na lang. So, it's not like that. Akin ho lang, magmi-mix ka na ng panibago. So, eto ho kagandahan, if you have a baker's percentage, and you try to learn how to make use yung ating flour factor, then in any occasion kung ano man ang order ho ninyo, it will now be very easy for you to have the flour that you need for the given production. The next question now is, how much should I cost my product? It is very simple. For product costing, what we do is we get the cost of the product per gram. If you bought, for example, your flour at 700 pesos per bag, one bag is 25 kilos. So your 700 divided by 25,000. So that is equivalent to 1 gram. So if you bought your sugar per bag also, let's say, for example, you bought it for 1,000, but one bag of sugar is equivalent to 50 kilos. So you divide it by 50,000. So always get to the lowest amount. For example, this one measures 1 kilo or 500 grams. So divide it by 500. If it is 1 kilo, divide it by 100. Or 1 kilo, I mean. So you get now your unit cost per gram. Now it is now very easy. How much sugar, how much flour did you use? 600 grams. You multiply it by 0.00 or whatever is the amount. That gives you the amount that you consume, that you use for your recipe. And then afterwards, get the total cost. You have now 32 pesos plus etc. What we do now is we divide 32 by the total dough weight. So you have your total costs multiplied by 3, which is a common factor used by everyone, divided by the total dough weight. By the way, after graduation and went back to the Philippines and started teaching baking on my own, the way we learn it in America is this. You have to get the cost of the building when you constructed it. You have to get the cost of the machineries that you bought, all the baking pans that you used, and then afterwards, how many years do you want to depreciate it? For example, the building, how long? You want it 10 years before it depreciated. For your machineries, is it 5 years? So what they did is 5 years divided by, the weight, the total cost divided by 5 years, divide by 12, divide by 30, that gives you the cost per day that will be added. In your building also, the same thing. If it is 10 years, you divide it by 10, divided by 12, divided by 30. So you add that to your cost. Plus, in America, it is different. They have a stopwatch. When you started working, they clock it. What time did you finish? So if you're earning per the hour, so they will give you, all right, this one is an additional cost. But when I saw when someone attended our class who is an owner of bakery, after the class he told me, Rolly, you're making us suffer for the way you compute it. You try to study this one. You multiply the cost by 3, you divide it by this one, your cost and mine will be the same. I did it, and it came out the same. So therefore, no more of this maintenance, of this. This one is, I learned it only from that guy, and I thank him. That is why now we use 3 as a common factor. This one will involve your machineries that you bought, the billing that you have installed, the salary of your people that you have, plus everything, it will be included in that factor of 3. So therefore now, you will have now your cost, but then this is only your cost of the product. What you should do is add your packaging material, whether you use paper, you use plastic, cellophane, include everything, pati ho yung inyong pinangtakip, whether it is yung plastic or what. Plus also, if you deliver, how much is the delivery cost? And this thing is not always included sa lahat ng mga computation. The amount of shortening used for greasing your baking pan. Please add that to your cost because shortening is not free. You bought it also. So what I could suggest is this. Before you start working on anything, if you're going, for example, to grease ensaymada mold, scale, for example, 30 grams of the shortening, and then you start greasing. If it is not enough and you still have 5 pieces left, then you try to analyze how much more will I scale. Do I need only 5 grams or do I need 10 grams? For example, you scale 5 grams, and then afterwards, you are able to grease all the 5 pieces. So therefore, the first 30 grams plus 5 gives you 35 grams of shortening. Now, how much is the cost of the 35 grams of shortening that you use? You add it now to your cost. So therefore now, hindi ko kayo malulugi. Likewise also, for those using yung tinatawag nating roller, you try to scale the flour that is used for dusting purposes. Scale it. And then whatever remains after it is through dusting everything, you scale. So afterwards, you also will be able to get it. For those making pandesal, which is not being done outside, what you do is you pre-scale the breadcrumbs first. And then afterwards, you now try to roll your pandesal. So whatever is retained dito sa matitira, yung naubos, na bimikit mo sa pandesal, so whatever is the cost, if you bought only the breadcrumbs, then you could now add it as cost sa inyong hong pandesal. I just don't know for those making pandesal whether you're buying the breadcrumbs and you're adding the cost to your product. So ito ho yung solution. Scale it first and then roll your pandesal. But yun hong difference, yung tinimbang nyo at yung natira, that is the amount of the breadcrumbs that was used when making your pandesal. Okay, I guess that would be it for our costing.
Yes, very knowledgeable, Sir Rolly, no? Marami kasi na gumagawa lang, no, without doing some product costing with their products.
Yes, yeah.
Tsaka importante din sa product costing, di ba, Sir Rolly, na minsan kasi yung owner, siya yung baker, nakakalimutan niyang sweldohan yung sarili niya. So, it should be sweldohan niya rin yung sarili niya para ma-add dun sa costing, makuha niya talaga yung tamang presyo ng kanyang finished product, right, Sir Rolly? So,
Also, the problem is costing. You bought the product per kilo, and then you're going to use the volume. What is the proportion of this? Doon sa total yung ginawa. So you're only guessing when it comes to the cost. But if you really scale everything, then you really get the right cost and then the right return.
Yes, that's correct. So another question, Sir Rolly, for product costing, why we need to convert our weight to grams?
Yes, because it is simpler. Because if you convert it, for example, I only want to make 1 kilo and I have my baker's percentage, so I scale, I use that. If I want to make now, for example, 7 kilos, so I use also the same baker's percentage, then I get the corresponding amount. So therefore, the 1 kilo and the 7 kilos, when you taste it, it will be the same.
Yes, consistent product.
Yes,
Yan
it
po.
will become consistent.
Yes. Tsaka 'di ba yung mga binibili naman nating produkto or mga ingredients sa tindahan hindi naman kutsara, hindi nakatakal.
Yeah, hindi.
Lahat po 'yan ay nakakilo.
Yeah.
Yan. So better kung may mga recipes kayo diyan na naka-cups, naka-spoons, better to convert it to the grams. Para
And you will
makuha.
notice that it will become faster if you convert it into weights. For example, you already have a client na, regular na ho yung production ho ninyo ng, for example, ensaymada, that you're making something like 3, 4, or 10 batches on a 2 kilos. So, if you now scale it, first measure the flour, 2 kilos until you reach the 10th piece. And then afterwards, scale the sugar, all the sugar again, then all the salt. So, you do it either Saturday or Sunday, so therefore you're free. You're not scaling it every day. But if you're doing it by cups, you will notice I showed you, if I'm in a hurry and I try to scratch immediately, the weight becomes lesser. So there is no consistency if you use the volumetric method.
Yes.
Better stick to the baker's percentage.
Yes,
It is not very difficult, the multiplication. If you do not like it, you have your computer. During our time, there is no computer. You really have to use your head. That is why people now are, lazy. They don't use their brain sometimes. They're so lazy.
Tama. So another viewers from Singapore, Nigel Souders. Hi, Sir Rolly.
Hello.
Yan. Meron tayong questions dito pero regarding sa improver. Ano po magandang improver para sa burger buns?
For burger buns, I would suggest, since you want it flat, I would suggest the Muddy Mix Yellow.
Okay. Also, what is the difference between the true percent and baker's percent?
When we say baker's percent, it is always more than 100 because the flour is already 100. Plus you have your sugar, probably 25%, your salt might be 2%. So if you keep on adding, it will be more than 100. A true percentage is 100 only. So the rest would either be containing decimals. So for example, flour, if you want it in true percentage, it is only 55. So you still have 45 left. So kukunin nyo yun. When you add all of it, it will not go beyond or less than 100. That is true percentage.
Okay. So I think we had a technical problem. So again, Sir Rolly, any message for this afternoon?
For the rest who may mga questions, if I reach home, I'll try to answer it. So, and if you want to learn more, well, meron ho mga ganung nagtuturo ng sa baking.
Yes. So again, we would like to acknowledge and thank Sonlie International Incorporation, our boss, who's also watching live. Boss
Okay.
Texon, Ma'am Julie, Sir Ron, Ma'am Jade, and Sir Ryan. Our production and marketing team, Mark, Bon, and of course, Polly. Yan. So let's acknowledge the presence of our sales team who's with us for the whole program. Happy selling, guys, and go for the quota. So, then, mas maraming salamat sa mga viewers natin at kasonli natin na nagstay until to the end of this discussion. And most of all, our deepest gratitude to our speaker, Sir Rolly, for untiring sharing his knowledge and wisdom for the baking industry. So we would like to invite you also for our next episode for Baking with Sonlie on August 18 with Master Baker, Jimbo Tipanadero, and for our Martin Brown products naman yung kanyang ipipresent. So thank you once again and see you again to our next Baking with Sonlie and Learning with Sonlie. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.